like I try to make myself useful, and I think like I don't have to do all the things that I used to do, all the schlepping and stuff, and so I think about that a lot. You know, I love finding a hot shoe.
Still love that. That still turns you on.
My favorite thing in the world is to come up with a shoe that every girl wants to wear. There is nothing in my life that I like more than that.
Welcome to On Brand with Donny Deutsch. I am, of course, Donny Deutsch, and this is the show dedicated to one premise, that everybody, everything, every product today is a brand. Every institution, every religion, every athlete, every celebrity, every company, every product, everything is a brand. A brand is a set of values. If you've got a Facebook page, you're a brand because you're putting it out there, what you're about. And what we do on the show is two things. First, we do a big mega interview with one iconic brand, and today's brand is Steve Madden. Steve has built a $3 billion shoe empire. He is an incredible rags to riches story, has overcome everything from drugs to jail, and is a titan of industry and a really interesting, colorful guy. Happens to be a good friend of mine also. So I think you're going to really enjoy my interview with Steve. But let's get to the brands of the week. A lot to get to. First, a huge brand down for Texas. I mean, Texas, can you do everything wrong in a period of a couple of weeks to just shit on democracy? First off, we all know of the abortion ruling that a woman, if she is, or a young girl or anybody who's raped by her uncle in 6 weeks can't get an abortion. There's no words for it. Obviously the first attempt to overtake Roe v. Wade, stunning. This is also the city, Texas opposed banning all abortions by 53%. Also, a new law went into effect in Texas, allowing all Texans who are otherwise allowed to own guns to carry them in public without a license, without training. And of course, they just passed a voter suppression act. They call it, it's everything, whether it's free voting, whether it's just carrying guns in public without licenses, whether it's not letting young women get abortions, even if they've been raped. I mean, Texas, what country you want? I know you wanted to secede years ago. Maybe it's time. So a huge brand down for Texas. They also happen to lead in child deaths and COVID-19. Just a little sidebar. The only kind of caveat I'll give is that in a strange way, they might save the Democrats in the midterms. Obviously Biden is having a rough patch. The handling of Afghanistan, COVID is still, the Delta variant. There's fears of inflation. But when you put this issue front and center, a woman's right to choose, it trumps, no pun, everything. And if I was running a Democratic campaign right now, I would start front and center with that, because you want to galvanize the woman vote. There's a gender gap as there is, but boy, what a way to send the election back in the moderate direction. Ron Johnson, brand up. Ron Johnson thought he was talking to a conservative journalist who was actually talking to a liberal one under disguise, and said the reason they lost the election is because Trump's didn't get as many votes as a lot of the other local political figures. I mean, he basically come out and said it. I mean, said the quiet part out loud that Donald Trump lost, seriously, because he basically just got less votes than a lot of our other assemblymen and local politicians. And there you go, Ron Johnson. You had to be a little faked into it, but there you come. Another brand down for another champion Republican, Madison Cawthorn, Republican North Carolina congressman, who described the January 6th rioters held in law enforcement custody as political hostages, political prisoners, and raised the threat of violence if people continue to believe in elections are stolen. If our election systems continue to be rigged and continue to be stolen, it's going to lead one place: bloodshed. There you go. That's one of our leaders in Congress right there. That's all you need to know. Brand down there. Surprising brand up for Ann Coulter. Now, Ann Coulter, to me, is as venomous as you get. It's just, I actually, when I had my old CNBC show, Big Idea, we got into an anti-Semitic, I accused her of being anti-Semitic on the air. I won't go into details. But she basically praised Biden for saying, unlike Trump, he had the balls to withdraw. So, basically said that, Trump said he was going to do it, but didn't do it. So here is a conservative standing up for Biden. And I champion anybody on the left or right who just doesn't always toe the party line. So Ann Coulter, who I disagree with about anything, at least she had the balls to stand up and say, guess what? He did what every president said he was going to do. He just did it and took the repercussions. Ron DeSantis DeSantis, a brand, I've talked a lot about him on the show. The reason I bring this up is because there's a new Vanity Fair article. So I don't know if this gives DeSantis a Trump up or a Trump down. It says, Trump fucking hates DeSantis, Trump confidant told Vanity Fair. He just resents his popularity. I mean, it's just, I just had to throw that in there. Trump hates DeSantis. No surprise there. And I love it. Okay, Facebook seems to be on my list every week. Misinformation. This is not necessarily a brand down on Facebook. This is well, it certainly is, but it's also a brand down for users. A new study shows that misinformation on Facebook got 6 times more clicks than factual news. A new study of user behavior on Facebook found that from August 2020 to January 21, news publishers known for putting out misinformation got 6 times more amount of likes, shares, and interactions than did the regular news sources like, CNN or wherever, World Health Organization. And it just shows that you have people, you can blame Facebook, but part of it is all people are searching for their own truth. You want to believe something, you search far enough, you'll find it. So those are getting 6 times the clicks. If you put lies out there, they will follow. There you go. More for Facebook. Brand up for something you're going to be hearing a lot about in the decades to come, the Metaverse. Big tech wants to build the Metaverse. And what on earth does that mean? Well, CEOs say that one day soon we'll be hanging out in an interactive virtual reality world complete with games, adventures, shopping, and otherworldly offerings, just like the characters in sci-fi movies. They call it the Metaverse. It's different from today's virtual reality where clunky headsets and cellular experiences, a few chances of crossplay with people own their gadgets. This is from the Washington Post. I'm reading. And of course, the good news for the tech companies, millions of people in the Metaverse compounds the size of the digital economy inside. There it is. But according to this, there's going to be this thing that is I guess you're on the web or you're on things, but you don't need all the crazy glasses and you're going back and forth between virtual and reality and just one more way for us to disconnect as human beings. So there you go. Speaking of which, brand down for wallets. Wallets seem to be over. Everything, there's a Wall Street Journal report, everything you need now, basically that you used to carry in your wallet, you can do via your smartphone. Obviously, we've got, contactless payments. There, in 2020, in-store mobile payments grew by 30%, almost a third. Basically, the firm predicts more than half of smartphone users will pay with their phones by 2025. But now you can get loyalty cards, obviously, on your phone from Walgreens and Rite Aid, insurance cards on your phone. And the last thing, what do we carry in our wallet? We carry our driver's license. Is that new mobile driver's license feature in 8 states. There are 8 states you can carry your driver's license in your phone. You don't need the actual, I guess it is an actual license. So, the things we use our wallet for, our credit cards, our insurance cards, our loyalty cards, our driver's license. I wouldn't want to be making wallets these days. And also, ringtones, brand down for ringtones. Ringtones are dying out. Mobile Phones says that UK installers installing ringtone type apps decreased by 20%. And it's the reason young people, twice as many 16, 24-year-olds who branded Generation Mute preferred no ringtones. They don't want to alert them on an incoming call. And the reason is they're on their phone all the time. They don't need the sound. They're staring at it all the time. So ringtones are pretty much going to be going away. I still need them, even though I'm on my phone a lot. I'm certainly not one of the Generation Mute. I'm not 16 to 24. Maybe if you multiply that by 4, you get my age. But there you go. And a big brand up for smart toilets. That's right. We know now we have smartphones that talk to us about our health, but next frontier, this is actually interesting, a little kind of, I guess, gross if you think about it, but interesting. At-home health tracking on the toilet. Researchers and companies are developing high-tech toilets that are designed to look out for signs of gastro disease, monitor blood pressure, or tell you that you need to eat more fish. Researchers at the Stanford School of Medicine outfitted a toilet bowl with cameras and a trained machine learning algorithm to analyze the waste against a diagnostic chart. So, when you get in trouble sometimes with the doctor and they want to send your poop and analyze it, I guess this does this at home. One more way our privacy and our whatever is collapsing. I guess anything that makes us healthier is a good thing. Here's an interesting thing to think about. And this is, I don't know if this is a brand up or a brand down. It's just a commentary on Chinese youth and China. Now, this we'd never do in this country, nor can we, because we are a free country. But then you wonder why we start to fall backwards to other countries. China is limiting online video games to 3 hours a week for young people. They're basically forbidding it. I mean, nor should we do this in this country, Monday through Thursday, and allowing young people to do 3 hours a week of video games that can track this. Now, what does this mean? It means that A, China certainly has less freedoms than us, but B, they're going to be building smarter, more attentive youth as opposed to our youth who are spending 50 hours a week on video games. So, yay for freedom. We can never take that for granted. But sometimes with freedom, we become in certain ways, I don't want to say weaker, but we don't play to our strengths as much. And young people in other countries playing less video games is not going to bode well for our future. So I'm not suggesting it. I'm just bringing up this is just an interesting thing. Speaking of American youth, let's give American youth a big brand up this week. And here's why. This is great. 92% of college freshmen are optimistic about their lives. That's surprising because young people usually 92% of freshmen say they're either they're optimistic, and 28%, more than a quarter, say they're super optimistic. But here's the interesting rub. They're much less optimistic when you talk to the future of the nation and the world. Less than half the respondents, 48%, said they're optimistic about the United States, while 60% are optimistic about the world. So that's interesting. They're optimistic, but they're not optimistic about our country. And that's kind of little at odds there. And here's the other thing that's at odds. 62% of the class of 2025 say they've experienced anxiety in the last year, and 47% have experienced depression. Now, I don't know if that means that to the word depression, that means you just had a bad day, you're not feeling good. I mean, depression is a strong word and it's a wide vast, but it's interesting. On the one hand, they're optimistic, but they're talking about half of them are saying they have anxiety or depression, have experienced it, and less than half of them think they're optimistic about this country, yet they're optimistic. So there we go. Big brand up for CVS, and they've gotten a bunch of brand ups on this show, but a big brand up for CVS this week, and here's why. They're betting that Americans will get their therapy at the same place they buy their snacks, soda, and prescription drugs. They basically saw COVID-19 with the uptick in depression as a opportunity, and they started stationing mental health providers, typically a social worker, that's a master of social work, at 13 locations in Houston, Philadelphia, and Tampa in a pilot program. It seems to be doing well. They're expanding it to 34 locations. But I think that's great. Look, number one, from a brand point of view, they sell wellness, and that certainly falls under the wellness umbrella. You go to the pharmacist for all kinds of wellness, help in the way of pharmaceuticals and over-the-counter drugs. And there's a taboo with a lot of getting mental health. And why not make it accessible that you walk in and there's somebody there and you can sit and talk with them? I don't know how the structure is set up, but I think from a brand point of view and a human point of view, I think it's fantastic. Nike, brand up. They gave their employees a week off for distress. They said, you know what? Mental health week off. Everybody gets a week off. I think, look, everything you can do for employees. Now, of course, Nike on the other side of the world has been accused of child labor, so I'm not quite sure about their labor force worldwide. And I'm not throwing aspersions, it's just things that have been written about and talked about over the years. Hopefully they've got their arms around that. But good week, giving their employees a week off for distress. I think that's thumbs up for that. I love this one. A brand up for something called Repair Smith. That's at-home car repairs. It's a startup that lets you book an appointment online and then sends a mechanic to your home. It's raising $42 million in new funding. I think it's a great idea. It launched out of a Mercedes-Benz incubator program. And is there any place more intimidating to walk into than a car repair shop? You think you're going to get ripped off versus having a home court advantage and having them come to you. So Repair Smith will be watching you. Okay, big brand. I love this one. Big brand now for hot dogs. Here you go. Here's a headline. Certainly not Oscar Mayer's future ad campaign. Eating a hot dog could take 36 minutes off your life, a study says. Health researchers at the University of Michigan have found that eating a single hot dog could take minutes off your life. They came up with an index that calculates the net beneficial or detrimental health burden in minutes of healthy life associated with serving a food. For instance, about a half a minute is lost per gram of processed meat, and about 6 seconds are gained per gram of fruit. So every time you're taking a hot dog, Joey Chestnuts, that's Joey Chestnuts who eats the 8,000 hot dogs at Nathan's every year on July 4th. He's committing suicide, man. So there you go for hot dogs. That's one study. Big brand up for Tops. Kind of a brand down, but I love the brand. So a brand down for Tops, but a brand up historically. We're going to find out how important Topps is to the actual brand of baseball cards. As of 2022, Fanatics, of course, the huge online fan merchandising game, they're getting into betting, they're getting into everything, will be the exclusive for Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball, the official distributor and maker of baseball cards. No longer Topps. I mean, come on, man. You need Topps for baseball cards, but the strong get stronger, and Fanatics walking in, obviously it's right in their wheelhouse. They sell jerseys. Why not sell baseball cards? But I don't know. Makes me sad. We love Topps baseball cards. Brand up for Dennis Rodman. Lionsgate landed the rights to something called 48 Hours in Vegas, which tells the story of Dennis Rodman's adventure during the 1998 NBA Finals. It's now been talked about a lot, and it's been romanticized a lot that during the NBA Finals, Dennis Rodman and the general manager, assistant general manager, went on a 2-day bender in Las Vegas, equipped with Carmen Electra, and supposedly he did more in those 2 days than most people would drop dead. And he came back and starred in the finals, and it sounds like that movie with Jonah Hill and Russell Brand, get them to the Greek, where Jonah Hill was a young guy trying to keep Russell Brand from killing himself and overdosing and everything to get him to a concert. So sounds like similar there, but Dennis Rodman, gotta love that. And a brand up for ABBA. That's right. The Swedish singing group, brand up. They're coming back. Set to unveil a comeback with holograms and new songs. After 40 years, they've notched over 400 million album sales in 50 years, and they're coming back with holograms called avatars, singing new ABBA songs. How do you not love that? And finally, a brand up for Monica Lewinsky. There's a new American crime true drama series on FX about Monica Lewinsky's affair with Bill Clinton's affair with Monica Lewinsky. And it's an 8-part series, and it's amazing how her brand over the years has changed with times. I mean, she was seen, and the Clintons, and they've got dirt on their hands for this, made her seem like she was the culprit there. And of course, in today's culture, we've become a lot more involved, Me Too, even pre-Me Too, to understand that she was the absolute victim here, a 22-year-old, the most powerful man in the world. She did what many women in that position would have done, or maybe had no choice to do, even though it was consensual. And her brand, she started turning around with a TED Talk, and she became a spokesperson for cyberbullying, and good for her. I had dinner with her once, a delightful woman, super bright, and hopefully she's going to have a great second act, and this is going to be kind of a big pivot point. She's already made that pivot point. Put Monica Lewinsky, a huge brand up. And those are our brands of the weeks. Now let's get to our interview with Steve Madden. As I said up front, Steve is an icon. One of the most compelling entrepreneurs in the world. He's built Steve Madden into a $3 billion shoe empire, and he's a rags to riches, come back from the bottom story. And here's my interview with Steve Madden. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about Wondery. Wondery is fantastic. Each season of Business Wars podcast from Wondery, you hear riveting stories of rival businesses battling for supremacy. And I want to talk to you about Las Vegas. They've got a great series. There's no other place like it on Las Vegas. Every year, 50 million visitors flock to the Oasis and empty their wallets. But while Vegas may be the entertainment capital of the world, it's got a very dark and very crime-ridden history. Throughout the 20th century, untold sums have been laundered through Vegas. We know that. And casino-owning billionaires have exerted untold influence on American business and politics. You've got to listen to the episode of Business Wars podcast from Wondery on Vegas. The newest season explores how Vegas went from a sleepy desert town to a financial powerhouse with a dark side. In the last 7 decades, organized crime families, both the federal and Nevada state government, and a handful of powerful billionaires have all fought over control of Vegas. Business Wars is the gritty story of how those power players either won big or lost it all. I'm telling you, I love Wondery, and this Business Wars, this series on Vegas on Wondery is fantastic. Listen to Business Wars, Birth of Vegas on Amazon Music, Amazon Podcasts, or you can listen 1 week early and ad-free by joining Wondery Plus in the Wondery app. Wondery, Wondery, Business Wars Vegas. You got to listen. All right, everybody, I have a huge treat for you on On Brand today. The one, the only, the majestic Steve Madden. Now, Steve, of course, is the founder and the chief honcho of the Steve Madden $3 billion shoe empire. He is a true rags to riches story. He has overcome many obstacles in his life. He's built an incredible brand. He has got a new book, The Cobbler. His Netflix documentary, Madman, is a must-see for everybody. And his story is going to be one of the most interesting ones you hear. Welcome to the show. And also, I buried the lead, a very good friend, Steve Madden. Oh, welcome, sir.
Yes, it's so nice to be here. I'm such a big fan. Outside of the fact that we're friendly, I like watching you on TV, and I enjoy when you're on the Morning Joe.
Well, thank you. And a lot of
see the afternoon shows you're on because I'm working.
You work, yes. Some of us
Unlike
work.
You.
Some of us, other those
Yes.
who just do podcasts and things like that.
Yes.
Now, if this was a lunch, Steve and I probably have lunch every 3 weeks, I'd say, or so. And if this was a lunch, you'd be overhearing what I call the blind leading the blind, two guys giving each other relationship advice. And so we're going to spare all of that to you today. We're going to tell you a little bit more about Steve's story and
we're going to talk about things we know something about.
Something we know something about.
Yeah.
First, Steve, I'm going to ask you the question I ask everybody who does this show. What is the Steve Madden brand?
Wow. You know what? So I always like to say, I mean, this is not going to sound terribly clever. It's the problem with podcasts, because you're sort of trying to drill down and get the secret and all of that. And so there is no secret most of the time. Mm-hmm. So we make shoes very much of the moment, very trendy shoes, and they're not too cheap and they're not too expensive. And that's always been something that it's always been something that I've lived by. And also the other thing is, when we have some other divisions that aren't Steve Madden, I always say to the leaders of the division, just make shoes that people want to buy. It's not that complex. So that's sort of it. I mean,
well, you have a personal brand also. And I think the personal brand leaks into the business brand. And I would say you are the world's only shoe provocateur. If I was going to kind of sum it up in that you basically, there are very few, if any, faces in the shoe industry. You are the face. And as you said, you've made luxury accessible. There was always very, very fancy shoes, and then there were always inexpensive shoes. And you said, especially Generation X, there's a huge white space in between, and you just kind of naturally filled it. And your personal brand, which you put very much on display in the book and the movie, and you've since said you kind of almost felt you expose yourself too much in the way you've talked about your personal brand?
Yeah. So that's interesting. We had COVID in the middle of everything, right? So things change. And when I was doing the audio on the book, I was wincing. Like I forgot, had been 6 months since I looked at it, and I was reading the audio, and I go, "Oh God, why did I put that in?" And I'd be reading it and go, "Oh God, I wish I hadn't have said that." And I was in a different place, The reason I did the book was sort of in response to The Wolf of Wall Street. That's sort of,
for our audience that doesn't know, and probably everybody does know, Steve was a prominent character. Wolf of Wall Street that's what Leonardo DiCaprio, aka Jordan Belfort, used the company to take public and was one of kind of the centerpieces of his stuff. And Steve was portrayed, unfortunately by you thought you were portrayed a little nerdy in the movie.
I was, in retrospect, I'm thrilled with the way I was portrayed. And he's a handsome fellow. It's Dustin Hoffman's son.
I didn't know that. I saw the name Hoffman. I didn't know that was Hoffman's son.
Yeah, much more handsome than me. So I was thrilled with that. And he had great hair, and but you can't see it.
Little challenge there, right? Okay, little follicle challenge.
It was good. It was good. I mean, we're getting into different things, but the thing about The Wolf of Wall Street, I was so afraid of it. I was like, oh, this part of my life is coming up again. And they actually made me sort of a victim in the movie and a funny character. And it was good for our brand. I mean, as terrible as that sounds, especially with young men who really took to the film. So, there's this famous scene in the movie where Jordan and Danny, who is his second in command, the Jonah Hill character,
right?
They're getting high on Quaaludes, and they're trying to get themselves psyched about this shoe guy that they're going to take public. So they're going, Steve Madden, and they're slurring it. And it's almost like a mantra.
Madden, right?
Yeah.
If those of us who have done Quaaludes will understand will understand the Quaalude cadence, if you will.
So I could be walking in the street and people do that to me.
Yeah.
Like I'll hear that. And people go, Steve, it's kind of funny. So, but anyway, I wrote the book and it was before COVID. So I guess I just felt I wanted to tell my story, and while I could remember it, and the other thing is maybe I could find some 26-year-old young man who feels lost and doesn't seem like he has much prospects, and show him that you could turn your life around. And that was the other sort of secret thing that I wanted to do, and I was hoping to reach. I don't know why I say man. I mean, but I was in my 20s and taking drugs and drinking and flailing around, and you wouldn't have bet on me at all to be a successful.
Well, if we go back earlier than that, if we go back to even in elementary school, and what you were the poster boy for ADHD before they knew what that was.
Yeah.
University of Miami, you go a year, you're doing lewds, you drop out after a year. So let's go back. Let's start. You're selling your first job is you're selling wholesale shoes, and then you find yourself selling at a store, Gildor in Cedarhurst. You're selling shoes after you drop out of college. Just pick it up from there.
So. Basically, it's sort of my outlier sort of moment where, I've done everything. I did a lot of jobs in the shoe business. I really learned the business from the ground up, and I worked in a shoe store, and I learned what women want, footwear was. And,
he's still searching on a bigger picture.
Yeah. And it was I worked there for 2 years. And it was a family fashion shoe store, very well-run business. They still are in business 40 years later, very successful on Long Island. And I learned I would not be successful unequivocally without those 2 years working in that shoe store.
So then you kind of just, at some point you say, fuck this, I'm going to do this myself with $1,100. You start selling shoes out of the back of your car.
Well, I went to work I went to work for a wholesale company after I left Gildor, and then I just wanted to go on my own. And so, I sort of very much believe that with a product, one product, I could start a business. Like if I had one shoe, and if I could sell that one shoe, and it retailed and it sold well, then I could build off that one shoe. And I was right. That's what I did.
That was was it a Mary Jane? Was that what it was called?
That was actually a clog, my first shoe.
Oh, your first shoe was a clog. But the first one that went really blew up.
In the Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
Where I go to the brokers.
And you show them the shoe. Yeah.
And I believe they're serious about my company. And I give a very dorky sort of presentation. And they're not interested at all.
They start throwing shit out. Yeah.
They start throwing. And it was... The film really got it right. I mean, it was crazy accurate.
So you're starting a business. You're selling your shoes. You're doing things. And where did all the drugs come in? Take us back to how all of a sudden this kind of took over your life.
Well, it's a good question. I suppose on some level, I started to take drugs as a teenager. I started smoking marijuana. And, I actually even have a memory of being like 15 years old or something, and like an Easter vacation with my friends. And we discovered pot, and I remember thinking, God, this is the greatest vacation I've ever spent in my life. But I didn't link the two. And, one of the things about ADD, I was untreated attention deficit disorder, which people hang that around people's neck today. But, I really have a terrible case of it. And I could tell you some of the symptoms later. But your mind is like, it's like somebody is sitting on the cable box and the channels are changing all the time. So you can imagine if you take something that calms you down as a 17-year-old boy and it's like, oh God, I'm
You see
so
clearly.
relaxed.
Yeah. You can see
And
things.
you can imagine how you could get in trouble because your mind is just going. It's like going, and I don't know what causes ADD or any of that stuff, but certainly that was the case for me. And then I went on and started taking other drugs as I got older and in college, and and it was, I just couldn't handle it.
But you were doing both. You were functioning, you were working, you were doing you actually, didn't you? I read that you got literally passed out in a Macy's sales meeting. You found yourself
No, I have to tell it in context, but typically, it's like it gets worse and worse. It kind of gets worse and worse. It starts off, it's kind of like a snowball going down a hill, and it's progressive, and you just do more and more, and and when you're young, when you're 20 years old, you can sort of work, and then use at night or whatever, and then you can work again. You're young, and you can, as you get older, it's not quite as easy.
So what was the low point? You've been sober for 30 some odd years now. What was the low point? What was the low point? What was the bottom where you just was like, this has got to change?
Oh my God. I had many, there was a time, I always say, like when hope and despair sort of meet, there's this moment where you can get sober. That's not what you asked. But it's just an awful feeling. You kind of like, oh, I did it again. I did that again. I didn't want to do it. I mean, it's not like I wanted to do it.
No, of course.
I started out the evening taking drugs and ended up passed out, or whatever. It just keeps going on, and you just like, how did that happen? I didn't really want to do that, but you just can't. For me, I couldn't control myself.
So what finally got you to get to the point where you said, I gotta fix this?
Not to use a cliche, but I will, because it's apt. We say I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And if you always say this, like a confluence, the sky is aligned. I mean, because we know people that still drink and drug and function.
Yeah.
I know, I know. I mean, they've never had that moment of grace or whatever it is, where they could, see. But you get a moment where you have a moment of clarity, and hopefully one takes advantage of that moment. It's not easy.
No. So to that 26-year-old that's listening out there that may be on that precipice, what's the pep talk? What's the message that somehow, if you were going to help that one person who's kind of at the sick and tired of being sick and tired, what would you say to them?
It made me think of something when you said it. First of all, I would say is that you have a choice. There's two things that I would say to someone if I only had a minute to speak to them. I would say that you have a choice, and that, addiction is a disease. Because that was very helpful to me to know that it was not completely my fault. Mm-hmm. It's a disease for someone like me, but also we have a choice not to use, and there are ways to get sober. I also want to say, you made me think of this, and of all the things that I have done in my life, built a big shoe company and stores and whatever, the best thing I ever did by far was to get sober. Yeah. The most successful thing I've ever done. The shoe thing is nothing compared to that.
Wow. So alcohol and drugs, specifically even more drugs, were one of the obstacles. The other obstacle, of course, and you've talked a lot about this in your documentary, in your book, is the prison time. and you're building Steve Madden. You're going along your merry way. Explain what happened as far as what ended up getting in trouble, them taking you public, and the whole Stratton Oakmont thing, and just kind of. There are 2 minutes I want to kind of just relive with you. One, the first time that you kind of said, "Oh fuck, the sky is falling," and then also your first day in prison. I know you've talked a lot about this.
So, yes, I was in The Wolf of Wall Street. Just you described the movie. I was involved. They were my childhood friends, and they raised money for my company, for the shoe company. And when I couldn't get money from anyone, I mean, couldn't borrow money, they came along. We'll raise you money. I thought, great.
You had one store at the time.
Actually, I started with Stratton Oakmont with no stores.
Okay, all right.
So they were with me from the beginning. So I got involved with these guys. I would not have built my business without Stratton Oakmont. I now have the clarity of history, to look back and say, they did raise money for me. And we all were a bunch of smart guys who took shortcuts. Mm-hmm. I look at it now, looking back, the guys that raised the money, Jordan and Danny, were super smart sales guys, would have been successful in anything.
I always say in watching, I know both those guys very, very casually, not like you do, but in watching the movie, knowing the story, I always said to myself, if Jordan took his skills and just did it legit, he would have been a billionaire, because he had the ultimate gift, being able to get people to follow you and motivate people. And that's everything.
I never met anybody like Jordan. He was unbelievable. I never saw a more charismatic leader of a business. But like me, Jordan and I both, we both took shortcuts and were greedy, and I certainly was. And so anyway, what we got in trouble over was the other companies that he took public. He got me stock in those companies, and it was sort of I sort of flipped them back to him at a prearranged price, and that's what we got in trouble for. And so I went to prison. I did 2.5 years in federal prison. And when I knew the sky was falling, I mean, I knew that everybody was, cooperating, and that I was ultimately going to be sort of served up. It's quite, there's nothing like prison. It's the worst. I mean, outside of dying, which I don't know what that's like. It's a pretty awful. It's as awful as you can imagine it. That you can imagine. I mean, I do remember my first night in prison, and I remember lying on my bed, looking up at the ceiling, and thinking, how am I going to get through this? Like, how is it possible? All your freedoms are taken away. You're just cut off from the world. I mean, and so to fast forward, the worst thing about prison is it's not the actual incarceration, because I would say that human beings have an ability to sort of manage with terrible circumstances, and you end up creating a life, and it wasn't so terrible. I mean, I worked out a lot and read, books, and had friends, and all of that stuff. And I was friends with a lot of guys there, and so the actual life wasn't horrible. We had, but what was horrible was, visiting day, right? And then you knew that the world was going on, and you were dead. It was like you were dead. You were in a cell, you were in a prison, and you weren't seeing anybody you loved, and life was going on, and people were going out to restaurants, and people were falling in love, and people were making friends, and you were dead. You were sitting there, and and time stopped. And it was just the most crushing. I remember walking back, I got a lot of visits.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, my friends came to see me, and my mom and brother, and that was great to see them, but then the walk back to my cube, we called it a cube, was so, it was like you had hope for a moment. You smelled the outside world, you had this hope. You heard about people and all this stuff, and then you walk back knowing that it wasn't real. They were going to go and have, shrimp cocktail for dinner, and I was going to go back and have a bologna sandwich.
I felt it on the other end, going to visit Michael Cohen several times, and leaving. I felt that on his end. I felt, okay, I was there for a couple hours, and it was just, and I'm going back to my world, and this poor guy was going, and I felt that, and I felt my stomach hurt, so I can't imagine on the other end of it. And you've been very gracious, before Michael was going to jail. He was freaked out as anybody would be. And I remember you came over to my home and you sat and you talked to him. You gave him some great advice. And that's one thing about you that I see in you, and that you're very comfortable taking your own personal, painful stories and trying to make them work for somebody else. And I've seen you and how comfortable comfortable is not the right word, how you almost feel it's your duty to do that. And that I've always been very impressed with that. Would Steve Madden be a $3 billion company without the drugs and without jail?
Oh, well, that question, would it be a $3 billion company? I not crazy about that question, only because it's so, everything happens sort of, it's rolled out, and the path is out there, and you go on it. And everything leads you up to where you are right now, right? Mm-hmm. I would say that Steve Madden is bigger than Steve Madden, for mm-hmm. sure. And I think I want to give a little color to that, because I think it's very important. What a lot of founders, a lot of founders get in trouble because they're perfectionists, and they kind of get in their own way. They reach a point in their company, and I've seen this with a lot of guys, and they get stuck. They get this little company, and it seem like they have a lot of promise, and they can't get out of their own way, because founders are perfectionists. They want to control everything.
They can't. I've seen, my dad was the same way. He started the company, I took over, and it was, nobody could do it as good as him. And he was an artist, and I was much more of a whore than he was, and I was able to just say, no, we could do it this way, and let's move on and hand it off to this person. And so yes, I've seen that business before. So because I got in trouble, I was forced to let go. I was forced to. Interesting. I couldn't be that guy because I was away, and I had to build, a broad executive team, and it wasn't, it was kind of like not. It was forced delegation. It was forced delegation.
Yes,
you had no choice, right?
It was not my decision.
Yeah.
But I did it, and I was forced, and because of that, because we built a big business. Broad executives. That's why we're so big today, because I have the team is unbelievable. Well,
you're great because you're a great leader. You have a vision. You surround yourself with great people, and the people want to do it for you. I'm going to answer the question in that you would have been successful, but I think those two obstacles, those that you kind of Herculean leaped over, have given you a what the fuck attitude that sometimes entrepreneurs need. That I've only met you in this iteration. I didn't know you growing up. I've only met you as a very successful shoe mogul and having already gone through these things. But what I gleaned from you and talking to you, and you're obviously a very sharp guy and you're passionate about your business, but you're able to keep it in its place at the same time. It's not that you don't take it seriously. You don't take yourself seriously while you take it very seriously. And I think that that's a function of what you've gone through, in that whatever is coming up against you, it's like, okay, well, this is not prison. This is not a drug addiction. This is just a bad shoe month. And I think that there's a great liberation and entrepreneurial kick that comes with that.
Yeah. That's sort of an interesting take, but I feel that, I mean, I guess the headline is sort of that, I'm probably like your dad, and I would have stopped at a certain amount. I would not have been able to get out of my own way. Not to go back to that piece, but I think it's important. I don't know, what the lesson is, but
no, you have both. You actually have a combination. Me and my dad. And by the way, my dad did the hard part, just like you did. He started something from nothing.
Yes.
I was able to scale it. You had both. You obviously were grinding it out, but you have the kind of kishkas of a promoter, and that's what I had.
The reality is different today. So like we're in a different place today. The things that I did to get successful, picking up the cartons at the airport and dropping.
Of course, that's what a small right. That's what a small
9 o'clock at night on a Saturday. So that skill, is not needed today. So it's a bigger, more thoughtful sort of approach to business, and it does drive me crazy when I don't see that grind. It makes me insane, but I have to let go of that today because there's other things happening.
It's interesting. There was a. You'll remember this from age. There was a local retailer called Fred the Furrier. Remember Fred the Furrier?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, Fred Schwartz, and he was a client of mine. He was when we were small. We had all these kind of fakakta clients, and there's two Jewish guys we used was like fakakta. I remember he said something to me that the bigger you get in certain ways, the harder your job gets. Because when you're when you're just like, okay, I have to fill up my day this way, and I got to deliver the cartons. If I don't deliver them, so many people get caught up in doing the same thing over and over. Because although you're working hard, you know it. And it's sometimes harder to push yourself to the stuff you don't know, where you kind of like, right now, okay, I can open up the next store and I can buy the next company, but you don't know, and where you're going to push yourself is, can I conquer e-commerce or whatever it is? And it's very easy for leaders to stay in the space that they're comfortable with. And I've also been impressed with you that you keep pushing yourself out of your space. What you do now, and I don't follow you around, but just in talking to you is, yes, you still have one foot in design, but you're really focused on who you're going to buy, and you're focused on how am I building my e-commerce business. And you never lost your core competency as a shoe designer, but you're not some guy that's spending 12 hours a day doing that.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that's really scary is from my generation, we didn't grow up with the internet.
Yeah.
And social media and e-commerce is everything. So how do you square those two things? I didn't grow up with it. Well, I'm sure you would have managed it. I mean, I think you did in your own way.
You find people who are smarter than you, and you surround yourself with them. That's the answer.
I think you did by selling. That's how you handled it, which was genius.
I got out at the right time for me. I monetized my business at a very young. It's interesting, and I don't talk about this a lot publicly. I sold my company, and Steve and I. We have a lot of parallels as people. I was in the ad industry very much like you were in the shoe. You were the bad boy of the shoe business. I was the bad boy, and kind of reinventing the wheel. And everybody liked to not like me, and yet I relished it as you do, and all that kind of stuff. And I monetized at a very young age, at 43. And what's been wonderful about that, and the reason I did it, it was such a service-oriented business, and I always found that at a certain age for me, it was too tough to be so service-oriented. It's something about the ad business, and I'd walk into a 3-hour meeting, and I knew how it was going to end in 2 minutes. I felt like I kind of won the game a little bit, and the good thing about my self-selling is that it's enabling me to do other things. I've had a media career, and I've been able to, climb other mountains, but I do miss. I do sometimes say, how big would it have been had I not? What would the empire have looked like? So I always say to young people, before you sell your business, don't do it for a number. You can't go visit your money in the bank every day. Do it because you're ready to do something else, and you could have sold your business at a certain point, for the same kind of money, if not more than I sold my business. But I don't think you'd be happy because you're not. And look, yours is a public company, so you did monetize your business in a different way. But I'm envious that you still have this big toy to play with every day.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that. I think about those things all the time. So I had a friend named Walter Yetnikoff, and he was the
the music business.
shot in the music business.
CBS Records. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody knows who he is today, but 25 years ago, he was like the guy.
Yeah.
And he said, Steve, I can tell, he was on my board. He said, Steve, I can tell you one thing. I'm going to tell you something. He said, I promise you, money will not make you happy.
Yeah.
You know, in and of itself. I'm telling you this. And it was a big thing when he told me that, you know, because we always had people, you know, Nautica wanted to buy Steve Madden. Kenneth Cole wanted to buy Steve Madden. And too bad Kenneth Cole didn't, because, you know, he's very small now. You know,
right.
Would have saved him.
Right. He says gleefully. Something tells me you had some run-ins with him.
I love Kenneth Cole. Kenneth Cole is one of my heroes, by the way.
Right.
My tongue is in my cheek when I said that. But he really is one of my heroes. Kenneth Cole was the first guy to do, like, put his name on shoes. He was a young guy, cool guy.
Did those cool ads. Yeah. I mean, my friend Richie Kirschenbaum did. Yeah.
Yes. He worked with Richie Kirschenbaum. And, but, you know, he didn't have, you know, he was too successful, and he didn't have to probably go outside and bring in people. And so the business kind of stalled at a certain level. But
you did it in a way, you monetized in a way you went public. So you're worth a lot of your net worth there. Anybody could look it up. You're worth a lot of money, but you still have your business. And that's, you know, it's very hard in the ad business to do that. It's very hard to go, it's not a consumer good. It's a different model. It's the way people monetize in the ad business is they sell a business to holding companies. That's the way it's done.
Right. Yes. However, it's easy for two guys to talk about the meaning of money when we have money.
Yes.
You know, it's a little, it's not disingenuous, but it's
the point that we're making, and we're not because yes, we're both very, very lucky guys, is that money is the way of keeping score, and don't sell your business. Just a business is a baby, and it's a passion, and you love it and you live it. And I don't have that anymore, and it doesn't matter how much money I have. That's something I miss. So I'm talking to people just in terms of, if you are running a bit, everybody's goal is, the number. You know, the number. Oh, wait, this, you know, every taking public the number, or this and that, or if I get this many eyeballs, my app is going to be worth this much. And it's the journey, man. It's getting there, and that's the fun part.
So so money in and of itself it's not going to change. You're still going to look in the mirror and see the zits on your face, and you know, all of that. And that's why but it's so interesting. It's an interesting discussion, and it's hard to talk about in this day and age. Two white guys.
Yes, we're not going to talk about race. Okay, we'll go down the money hole. We're not going to go down the race.
Right, we'll go down the money. But it is interesting. I'm dealing with it now. COVID made me face a lot of things because I was stuck at home. You know, I wasn't. Yeah. You remember that bit that those you know, 4 months, whatever, that insane.
You and I used to talk to each other every few nights. Are you okay? Are you okay? Or like
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was a crazy.
I mean,
I think you're a model for people who have sold their businesses. I think what you've done is you've stayed creative and
relevant. The word is we want to be relevant.
That's awesome. It's something I've thought about it, you know, and frankly, I have such a great team today, and I'm not really. They're smarter than me, and so like I try to make myself useful, and I think like you know I don't have to do all the things that I used to do, all the schlepping and stuff, and so I think about that a lot. You know, I love finding a hot shoe.
Still love that. That still
my
turns out.
favorite thing in the world is to come up with a shoe that every girl wants to wear. There is nothing in my life that I like more than that.
I was the same way 25 years into running an ad agency. If there was somebody would show me a great spot, a great ad, and it hit a nerve, and I knew we did it, like it still got high from it. And that, look, the best people who run creative companies, whether it's a movie studio, a shoe company, whatever it is, are the people who at their core are craftsmen. They also have that other side of the brain. and that's the key is, but what makes you a great shoe businessman is that you are a lover of making shoes. What made me a pretty good ad guy was that I loved ads, and I happen to be a good business guy also, so, and we both have, so you got a couple of, speaking of like your next act, a couple of interesting things. You recently announced a deal with, Michael Rappaport, who's actually was just recently on the podcast, and that he's going to kind of play you in. It's in development now with our mutual friend Meryl Poster, who's executive producing it. That it's basically kind of a Ray Donovan version, Netflix type series on a character loosely or not so loosely based on Steve Madden. That's cool as fuck. That really is.
Yeah, cool, and he's a great
guy.
He's a great guy. I know that you guys got friendly recently.
Mm-hmm.
You did your podcast, and he's such an interesting guy. I mean, and so for the same reasons I wrote the book, I want to do the TV show, and we'll see. COVID kind of like backed up the
pipeline,
the content tubes a little bit. So we're working on that, and we're also looking at other things. And since Michael's worked with Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino and Spike Lee, so Michael has all these, and he's such a very interesting, intelligent guy, and so we're looking at other stuff too, but it's not like shoes. And I don't know what the fuck I'm doing anyway,
Yeah, but that's the fun part. That's the fun part.
I think that's important. You need to be a little naive to make money.
No, that's it. Well, that's what I have a chapter in one of my books. Enough about you. Let's talk about me. I have a chapter in one of my books called The Multiple Mountain Theory, in that there's an irony that comes with what I call the pillow of success. Like for you right now, there's no margin of failure in the shoe business anymore. There's only degrees of success. Are we going to grow 7% next year? Did I buy this company? There's no roof. You can't fail anymore. And the reason it's fun to do that, what I call the multiple mountain, the other mountains, it's that feeling of scratching and clawing all over again, reinventing, as you said, the schlepping of the boxes. So if you go into the TV business, just like I went into the media business, for the last 10, 15 years, I've been schlepping boxes, where I was done schlepping boxes in the ad business. And the irony of success is there's a pillow that comes with it. And and then you lose that, and everybody you get self-actualized, you make money, you get adulation, but you don't get that other schlepping the box feeling again. And that's what keeps people fresh and young. And I don't think I love doing this podcast. I love talking politics. I don't know if I'd be, although I gave you my talk earlier about did I make a mistake selling? I don't know if I'd be getting it up as much if it was just advertising now. And that's an issue, but you're doing both. And that's the answer.
Yes, but make no mistake that finding the hot shoe is the whole ball game for me.
So how do you know, okay, what clicks as best as you can articulate it, that something you see a shoe, I'm not going to say something stupid and banal, like what makes a hot shoe, but like
so the process. So we have a design studio. We're designing shoes. We're shopping the streets. We're looking at everything all over the world.
You'll chase a woman down the street when you see a shoe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still do it. It's terrible.
Well, at least you're known now, so they don't call the police when you stop them,
Old idiot now. And I have to kind of please, I'm in the shoe business. I'm Steve Madden. Please don't be, I have to say all that because
yes, before you get arrested. Yeah.
I still do it. I love to see people wearing stuff. It inspires me. It's like the way they wear it with a pair of jeans, or they wear it with a skirt, or just the way they move in the shoe. It brings it to life. And it's the same thing when we design a shoe, or just the whole thing. Or I've taken a shoe off a poster, a movie poster. I don't even know. Like I saw a movie poster with a shoe, and that's what we want. It was a Gwyneth Paltrow movie. I can't remember what it was, with Jack Black. I can't remember, but anyway.
Shallow Hal.
Shallow Hal. That's okay, right. All right. Shallow Hal. We took that fucking poster to that fucking shoe. I don't care what. Make that fucking shoe. Anyway, that's what I do, and of course, we're creating all the time, and we're looking at the streets and looking at the zeitgeist. And you know, I always say that it's like a big stew. We're you know, we're dreaming up shoes. We're looking at Gucci. We're looking at everything. We're looking at Zara. We're looking at, you know, we're creating, and it's a big stew, and we mix it up, and it pops out, and that's what Steve Madden is.
You know, what's interesting is sometimes you've taken shit because, oh, he rips off the, you know, look, when people make movies, if you're an artist, you're soaking in everything around you, and you're getting inspiration for it. And so I never understood that rap, for lack of a better word.
If you listen to John and Paul, and they're always talking about stealing this lick from Chuck Berry and taking this from Motown, always talking, you know, they're honest, they don't care, you know, you read their interviews. And I mean, Balenciaga and Gucci, they're making great stuff. Why wouldn't I look at that stuff?
Yeah.
It's certainly not just copies of that, because we wouldn't be successful, you know.
Right.
But I mean, yes, it's influential, it's fabulous, and the shoes are so fucking expensive. They're $1,000 shoes
that you can.
I have. It's like my duty to bring fashion to America.
That's it. Well, I mean, that's what you've done. One thing you've done also that people would know about that I have such respect for, you've always kind of taken care of your boys. You know, you got a lot of the guys you grew up with working for you, guys that you met in prison working for you. There was a guy I grew up with that had been in the shoe business for years, lost his job. I said, I didn't even know if he was good at what he did. I said, Steve, would you talk to him? And like, boom, you talk to him, you hired it. Like you love the fact that he was a 60-year-old guy that maybe wouldn't get hired again just because of his age. You said, fuck it, I'm gonna give him a chance. He's turned out to be a great asset to
one of
company.
my best hires. Guy's awesome.
Yeah.
Works his ass off.
So like, you know, you have that sekel in you, and it's what's made you kind of who you are. How much has being a dad influenced you as an artist and you as a businessman? other than making you lose your last 3 strands of hair.
Yeah. What? I have a few. I'm growing a certain.
Oh, I see that. Yes, I like that.
Yes. So, oh boy, you know, that's a deep question, because, you know, this is the kind of question you have to be like, oh, I love my children. They're everything to me. Because if you don't say that, everybody comes out of the woodwork and kills you.
Right.
So obviously, you know, our children are they're our greatest love. They have to be, because they come from us.
Right.
But it is difficult.
It's hard.
I'm telling you, it is difficult dealing with, you know, I have 2 14-year-olds, twins.
Right.
Going to be 14 next month. And I have a baby. I have an 8-year-old. And it's difficult. It is, you know, I love them. I you know, I want them to be happy. But, and, you know, so my struggle is, you know, being strict and wanting them to be happy. And I want to report that I fail miserably.
At the latter. And at the former, I mean. Right.
You know, I do. I mean, because you want them to laugh and be happy.
It's hard.
So I know that sometimes saying no is the best thing.
It's hard to not rob your kids of the luxury of being hungry that we had, you know, and it's just, once again, this is a high class problem, but it is to raise kids with the right values when they're growing up in a very, you know, in a very comfortable, very affluent situation. It's a challenge. It's an absolute challenge. And I'm failing at it also, by the way.
Well, we could do a program on that one day with a bunch of guys or women or whatever, because it's very complex. And I'm not sure that, I don't know that what you just said was, being born poor is an advantage.
It's not an advantage, but being hungry. It's about being hungry.
You could be hungry even if you were a child of privilege.
Yes, but that has to come from the parents have to make that happen, and that's where you and I can fail or succeed. All right, Steve, I want to just tell the audience before you go that beyond being a monster talent, you're one of the nicest people around. And people don't always know that about very successful. They almost think it's counterintuitive that anybody that has a lot of money or anybody that has some notoriety or fame, they have to be assholes. And you are that kid from
we're assholes.
We are, and well confirmed, yes, but you are that kid from Far Rockaway. I couldn't be happier for all of your success, and I know how busy you are. Thank you for taking the time today, man. I appreciate it.
So good to see you. Thanks a lot.
All right,
we're going to do that parenting show.
We're going to do the parenting show. I'll see you at lunch, buddy. Later on.
Okay. All right.
Hope you guys really enjoyed my interview with Steve Madden. What an inspirational guy. And that's it for this week's On Brand. I hope you stay on brand, and remember to rate, review, and subscribe. You can also watch our videos on YouTube and you leave comments there, please. So we love your participation in the show, and we'll see you next week on Brand. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.